Did you know there's a connection between dyslexia and retained primitive reflexes?
Welcome back to the Harkla YouTube channel. I'm Jessica.
And I'm Rachel, and we're the Certified Occupational Therapy Assistants here at Harkla.
And we are going to talk about the connection between dyslexia and learning disorders and retained primitive reflexes.
By understanding this connection, we will hopefully help our clients and our students and our children and even our adults with dyslexia to learn how to implement new strategies, new activities to integrate those primitive reflexes and improve dyslexia.
Yes, so first we want to understand what primitive reflexes are. So let's dive into that really quick. Primitive reflexes are the developmental movement patterns that we are all born with that help us thrive and develop and meet those milestones that we're all familiar with in babies. And the kicker here is that these primitive reflexes integrate or make way for higher level cognitive patterns, higher level movement patterns later in life.
If these reflexes are retained or they don't integrate on that timeline, we can often see connections in adulthood and childhood with things like executive functioning challenges, ADHD, dyslexia, and other learning challenges, motor coordination, anxiety. There's so many things that are connected to these reflexes when they are not integrating on time.
Now let's dive into dyslexia really quickly. Dyslexia is a learning disorder. It has nothing to do with intelligence or IQ levels. Really, it's a brain learning disorder that affects reading, spelling, and writing. And individuals with dyslexia may struggle to connect letters to their sounds, which is where we see that connection to reading.
Now, these primitive reflexes are controlled in the brainstem, and when they are not integrating on time, they can impact development in areas of learning, academic skills, coordination, which really is what makes these learning skills difficult.
There's also going to be a connection to language development, and the research shows this as well, which I always thought was really cool, that primitive reflexes have such a huge impact in all of these different areas. But since we're specifically talking about dyslexia, there is that connection between reading and writing and retained primitive reflexes. And there's a couple of primitive reflexes that we specialize in that do have a direct impact on dyslexia.
Now, the first reflex that can be potentially connected is the Moro reflex, which can kind of keep a child in that state of fight or flight. It can keep them feeling really anxious or nervous and really struggling with focus and attention when they're learning new skills. And they can have big reactions to little problems, which is really what makes learning really challenging for kids and adults with a retained Moro reflex.
The next one is the ATNR, which is the asymmetrical tonic neck reflex. And this reflex really separates the left and the right sides of the body. And if this reflex is retained, it's going to make it more difficult for a child to coordinate left and right, to differentiate between left and right, which is going to have an impact on reading and writing because the child's going to get confused on some of the letters. They're not going to make those connections. And really, from a brain level, we're not making those new neural pathways across the two brain hemispheres because of this retained ATNR.
And the next one that can potentially impact learning is the tonic labyrinthine reflex, or the TLR, which really impacts balance, postural control, postural stability, and it can make reading fluency and just the ability to visually track across the page, those ocular motor skills, really challenging as well.
And then another interesting fact is that these primitive reflexes are all connected to each other. So if one reflex gets stuck and can't integrate, it's more likely that the others are also going to get stuck. So this, just makes it even more challenging for a child who's learning to read and write.
Now, we found a couple of studies that really show that connection between retained primitive reflexes and dyslexia. This first study shows the connection between primitive reflex persistence and challenges with reading and challenges with movement and coordination. And it's just so fascinating. We'll link all of these articles in the description below as well.
And then the second study that we found showed that the attainment of core educational skills is likely going to be impacted by those retained primitive reflexes that are stuck in the lower brainstem.
Now, these unintegrated reflexes can make it really uncomfortable and difficult for a child to sit in a traditional classroom setting. They may be uncomfortable, they may be fidgety, they may be, really struggling to learn on the same trajectory as their peers.
So if your child has a diagnosis of dyslexia, or if they're showing signs of dyslexia, or if they're very, very resistant to reading and writing activities because they're so difficult, we want to take a look at their retained primitive reflexes and see if this is why they're having such a hard time. And really the good news here is that primitive reflexes, if they get stuck and are retained later in life, because the brain is plastic and can be changed at any time, it's never too late to work on these retained primitive reflexes and make those new neural connections.
Now, this is why we created our brand new program, A Balanced Brain. It's a multisensory processing program. It's 10 weeks long, and it walks you through step by step 30 different activities that use multisensory processing with a metronome, primitive reflex integration, bilateral coordination to work on these underlying skills that need to be addressed in students with ADHD or dyslexia, really anything. It can be for anyone and everything. They all need to do it, honestly.
Ages 6 and up.
Six and up. But adults can really benefit from this program as well.
Yeah, and this program is designed for parents and professionals alike. It's not just for one group. This is really for anyone who has a child or is working with children ages 6 and up.
Yeah, and if you are an OT practitioner, you do earn 0.45 AOTA CEUs or 4.5 contact hours when you complete the program as well as the course.
And then one of our favorite parts of this program is that you also get the physical workbook included when you purchase it.
Now, if you are concerned with your child or your client's ability, or if you think they maybe have dyslexia, we're going to share our top 3 activities from this program that you can start doing today.
The first one is a pdqb chart, reading it with or without the metronome. So you're going to make a visual chart with the lowercase letters P, D, B, and Q. And just go ahead and write out a couple of rows of these letters, no specific order, mix them up so they're very random. Hold that chart up for your child or put it on the wall at their eye level and have them read that chart and just really get comfortable with remembering and visually recognizing these letters that are often difficult for children with dyslexia. Then you can turn a metronome on at 60 beats per minute and try to coordinate reading those letters on every beat. And then you really have a great multisensory activity that's working on those letter identifications, that left and right discrimination, processing speed, and auditory processing.
Now, if your child is really struggling and getting these letters confused, you can add a motor movement such as pointing their arm in the direction of the letter loop. So a P would be up in the top right because that's where the loop of the letter P is. A B would be lower right, a Q would be upper left, and then the D would be the lower left as well. So that kind of gives that kinesthetic approach as well.
Which can be really helpful, yes.
The next activity we love is to get on the hands and knees, and we're going to be rocking forward and backward in this position. Now, we didn't talk too much about the STNR specifically in this episode, but it is a really important reflex to pay attention to as it relates to dyslexia and other ADHD type symptoms. So we're just going to be on our hands and our knees and rock back and forth, and you can add a visual chart as well to read while you're doing that motion with the beat of the metronome set at 60 beats per minute.
And our third activity is head turns with visual charts while in crawling position. It's a lot of words, let's break it down. So you're gonna have your child in a crawling position on their hands and their knees, and you're going to place 2 visual charts at eye level, one to the left side of them and one to the right side. And you're going to have your child alternate between reading the 2 charts. And to do this, they're gonna turn their head all the way so that their ear points down to the floor, read the chart on that side, and then turn their head to the other side, making sure their other ear points to the floor, and read the chart on that side. And you're gonna have them alternate reading the items on the chart as they're doing their head turns, while simultaneously maintaining that good crawling position on their hands and their knees.
Now you may be wondering, why on earth are you having us do these ridiculous exercises and these movements? It just doesn't make sense. But really it does, because we're trying to give the brain a second chance to go through these movements movements that maybe the child didn't do in infancy, or maybe this is what happened when they went through a traumatic event. It kicked them back into their brainstem level of processing the world around them. So if we can give their brain a second chance, like Jessica mentioned earlier, the brain is very plastic and malleable, so we can give it another chance to go through these movements, get it into that higher level ability of processing the world around ourselves, and it will just make so much more sense for the child.
If you decide to try any of these activities with your child or with yourself, we highly recommend you, the adult, also try it if you're an adult watching this. Make sure you let us know, leave a comment on this video. You can take videos and share them with us. We love seeing you try the activities we're recommending and let us know how they go.
If you are concerned about your child, if you think they may have dyslexia or retained primitive reflexes and you're really not sure where to start, you could always check out our digital course. It is all about primitive reflex integration. It teaches you how to test for and how to integrate primitive reflexes. It's more of a formal integration program, not just this not just this balanced brain program that focuses on the multisensory component. It might be a good place to start, or you could get an OT evaluation for your child. We always say, when in doubt, rule it out.
Yes, definitely. If you found this video helpful, make sure you click the like button and make sure you subscribe to the Harkla YouTube channel. Also, we have a podcast, All Things Sensory Podcast. Make sure you check that out. We're also on YouTube at the All Things Sensory Podcast YouTube channel and Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
And with that, we'll plan on seeing you next week for another video all about primitive reflexes.
Okay, bye.
Mother of glory.
Core educational skills. You have to.